The darkness within him had long ceased to be a choice. It was an inheritance, a suffocating cloak woven from regret and power, a permanent echo of a man he had once been, a man he had meticulously buried. For years, the void had been his dominion, the Emperor's instrument of order. But in the suffocating silence of his private chambers, a new disturbance had begun to stir. It was not the predictable tremor of the Force, nor the calculated pronouncements of his master. It was a dream. A recurring, visceral vision that clawed at the edges of his carefully constructed reality. He saw a desert, an endless expanse of ochre sand, baked by the relentless glare of twin suns. The air shimmered with an oppressive heat, a suffocating blanket that seemed to press in on him. And within this desolate panorama, a sound began to bloom. A cry. Faint at first, a mere thread of desperation, but growing, intensifying, until it became a piercing lament that tore through the silence. It was a child's cry, raw with fear, laced with an unbearable need. He felt an inexplicable pull, a resonance that bypassed his hardened defenses, a chord struck deep within the buried remnants of Anakin Skywalker. It was a child's fear, a child's plea. And with a certainty that defied logic, a certainty that chilled him more than any Sith incantation, he knew. It was his child. The cry, so full of raw vulnerability, intensified, then abruptly ceased, leaving only the oppressive, deafening silence of the desert. This dream was more than a phantom limb, more than a tormenting reminder of what had been lost, what had been irrevocably taken. It was a vision of a path not taken, a path he had glimpsed, however fleetingly, on that precipice of revelation. On Bespin, when the Emperor had urged him to strike down his own son, a flicker of the man he once was had ignited. A spark of rebellion against the suffocating darkness. He had refused. In that moment, when the galaxy expected him to embrace the ultimate act of Sith cruelty, he had chosen to spare the boy. That act of defiance, that sliver of Anakin's buried compassion, had been a seed. And that seed, nurtured by the persistent, spectral echo of his child's cry, had begun to sprout in the barren wasteland of his soul. The Emperor preached of order, of control, of eradicating all emotion, all sentiment. But this dream, this raw, primal instinct, was a force that even the Emperor could not comprehend. It spoke of a legacy, a continuation, a possibility he had long since buried beneath layers of pain and darkness. It spoke of a son he had seen, a son he had chosen not to destroy. He made his decision in the suffocating silence of his chambers, the rhythmic rasp of his respirator a counterpoint to the storm raging within. The dream was not a mere hallucination, it was a summons. The Force, in its inscrutable wisdom, had guided him to this desolate world, not as a harbinger of doom, but as a beacon of truth. He needed answers. He needed to know if the echoes in his mind held the substance of reality, if the child he had spared was truly his own. The journey was a clandestine operation, a maneuver orchestrated in the shadows of the Empire's vast machinery. The Emperor's watchful gaze was a constant threat. To pursue such a personal quest, fueled by a dream and the lingering embers of defiance, would be seen as weakness, a fatal deviation from the path of absolute power. He moved with the precision of a phantom, ensuring his mission remained veiled in secrecy. He was no longer merely the Emperor's enforcer, the harbinger of fear. He was, in the deepest, most buried recesses of his being, a father, seeking the truth of his existence, seeking the child he had chosen not to claim in the Emperor's name. The descent through the atmosphere of Tatooine was jarring. The familiar gravity of this world, a world he had sworn to forget, felt heavy, oppressive. Each breath of its arid air was a reminder of what he had lost, of who he had once been. The Force here felt different, raw, unrefined, untamed. But beneath the surface chaos, there was a resonance, a familiar echo, the same one that had haunted his dreams, the same one he had felt in his son's defiance. He emerged onto the hot sands, his dark cape billowing dramatically in the wind, a stark contrast to the muted hues of the desert. The twin suns cast long, distorted shadows, elongating his imposing silhouette, transforming him into a monolithic figure against the vast, empty landscape. He disembarked alone. The Emperor's paranoia was a useful tool, a shield against unwanted scrutiny. But he had learned to navigate the shadows of his master's gaze. His objective was not conquest, not suppression. It was to find the source of the dream, to confirm the whispers of the Force, to understand the child he had spared. He walked slowly, deliberately, across the dusty ground. His heavy boots left deep impressions in the sand, ephemeral marks in the timeless desert, each step a testament to the weight of his past and the uncertainty of his future. He approached a humble, functional farm, a stark testament to the harsh realities of life on Tatooine. He could sense the presence of life within. Two presences, familiar in their quiet strength, woven into the fabric of this remote existence. And a third, a younger, vibrant energy. The Force. It pulsed from this dwelling like a beacon he himself had almost extinguished within his own soul. It was the same energy that had resonated in his dreams, the same energy he had felt in his son's raw, untamed power. He stopped a respectful distance away, his helmeted head turning, scanning the surroundings. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the silence heavy with anticipation. He felt it then, the confirmation of his dream, the undeniable truth reverberating through the Force. A distinct signature. Young. Untrained. Yet, undeniably powerful. The Force. It flowed through the boy as naturally as the wind through these canyons. A raw, untamed power. The same power that had once flowed through him, before the darkness had consumed it. The child from his dream, the son he had refused to claim in the Emperor's name. And then he saw him. A boy. Working on a speeder bike outside the dwelling, his brow furrowed in concentration, oblivious to the imposing figure at the edge of his perception. His hands, calloused from labor, moved with a surprising grace. There was a spark in his eyes, even from this distance. A curiosity. A yearning. He was unaware, untouched by the corruption that had seeped into his own soul. The innocent face from his prophetic visions, the face he had seen on Bespin, the face that had mirrored his own lost innocence. The boy paused, looking up at the sky, a wistful expression on his face, a silent question hanging in the air. He was searching for something beyond this dusty horizon. He knew that look. He had worn it once. A hunger for adventure. A desire to be more than what this world offered. A desire that had led him down a path of no return. It was the same yearning he had sensed in his dream, the same yearning he had seen in his son's eyes. A man emerged from the dwelling. Stern. Protective. His fear was palpable, a bitter tang on the wind. He saw the dark armor, the imposing presence, and recognized only the threat. A threat to his quiet life. A threat to the boy. He knew nothing of the true purpose, or the dream that had driven him across the galaxy, or the internal war that had raged within him since Bespin. He saw only the storm. The man gestured for the boy to come inside, his movement sharp and urgent. The boy hesitated, casting a curious glance back at the imposing figure before reluctantly obeying his uncle. The guardian. He shielded the child, a primal instinct. He did not understand. He could not. The boy was not merely his nephew, he was something more. Something that could change the fate of the galaxy. A legacy he had nearly erased, a legacy now confirmed by the prophetic call of his dreams and the desperate act of defiance on Bespin. The boy withdrew, drawn back into the safety of his mundane existence. A life he had sought to escape, a life he had once believed was a cage. But perhaps, he mused, it was a sanctuary. A sanctuary for the child of his dreams, the son he had chosen to protect. He could have forced his way in, demanded answers. His power was absolute on this world. But that was not why he had come. The dream had been the catalyst, the force the guide. He had come to observe. To confirm. To feel the truth of it in the force. And the truth, it was overwhelming. He closed his eyes for a moment, his gloved hands clenching. The rhythmic hum of his respirator was the only sound, a mechanical heartbeat in the vast silence. The connection. Faint, yet undeniable. A thread of his own essence, woven into the tapestry of this young life. The Force, in its infinite wisdom, had preserved a part of him. A part of Anakin. A part of what he had so carelessly destroyed. The dream had not lied. The choice on Bespin had been the first step back. He turned slowly, his dark cape swirling like a crimson shadow against the ochre sand. He began to walk away from the dwelling, back towards his waiting shuttle. He could not approach him. Not yet. To reveal himself now would be to unleash a storm the boy was not prepared for, a storm he himself could barely control. The boy needed protection, not from him, but from the forces that would seek to exploit his potential. Forces like the Emperor. Like himself, in his darkest hours. The dream had brought him here, but the future remained uncertain. He was no longer the Emperor's instrument of destruction, but a father seeking to shield his son, a son who represented the last vestige of his lost humanity. He reached his shuttle. He paused at the ramp, looking back at the small dwelling, a tiny speck in the vastness of the desert. This world. It held the past. And now it held the future. A future he had never dared to imagine, a future first glimpsed in the torment of his dreams and solidified in the crucible of his defiance. A son. A chance to atone. The path ahead was perilous, fraught with deception and sacrifice, but for the first time in a long time, the void within him felt a little less empty. The shuttle ascended, a dark silhouette against the twin suns. The Star Destroyer waited, a sentinel in orbit. The Emperor believed he had broken him. He was mistaken. He had forged him. Forged him into something more. A weapon, yes, but also a protector. The crimson shadow might cast a long darkness, but even the deepest shadow could not extinguish the light. And in that light, he saw him. His son. The child of his prophetic dreams, the son he had chosen over the dark side. And for the first time, a flicker of hope ignited within him. A dangerous, fragile thing. But hope nonetheless. The hunt had begun. Not for prey, but for redemption.